of which Pemberton Township has been. No business is going to start investing their money with a government where the people are not, well, they don't approve what's going on, basically. I strongly suggest, and I'd like to see tonight, if Jason, could you take a poll to see what the feelings of the council are about reversion of government? In other words, abandoning this form, reverting back to the previous form of committee form. And every year you had an election. One year you elected 2, the next year you elected 1, and the next year you elected 3. 3-year terms. And if they weren't doing their job, they usually got bounced. It was a more transparent form than we currently have now in this town. Very transparent. At least all 5 people will know what's going on financially, what's going on with the police department. Now, 5 people sit here, and 1 person knows what's going on and doesn't communicate. And when it comes budget time, you ask for information because you have to approve the budget. You got the responsibility of approving it. I don't know how you could approve the budget or even talk about the budget if you can't go and get the information being given to you by the finance office and by the mayor when you want it and by the administrator. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. It's a big joke. And I'd like to see Jason take a poll to see what the feelings are about reversion of this government. Could you poll the council?
I'm not going to poll the council, Mr. Tam, because I don't know enough.
It's not a vote. It's a poll.
I understand that, but I don't know enough about the other form of government, even though I have looked into things, and I'm assuming there may be some other people on council that might not know everything about it, and I don't think that's fair. If council would like to do a poll, but I don't think that's fair.
I think that's a decision for the whole community, not 5 council. We can't
No,
decide
it's not
that.
a decision. I'd just like to see what the feelings are, whether you feel this form of government is satisfactory for the people and giving justice and democracy to the people of Pemberton Township.
Mr. Tam, which form of when you served on council, which form of government did you
Committee
serve
form. It's the oldest form, charter form.
And then what? It's the oldest
Which was
form?
in effect from 1846 when the town was incorporated. It was always the committee form of government. You used to have a...
Just enlighten me a little bit. How come the township got away from that form of government?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's unfortunate, but there's a problem that a couple of them just decided that let's have a charter study commission, and the people voted for a charter study commission to change the form of government.
So
It's not an easy process. It's a 15-person commission, and the process took about 2.5 years and cost the taxpayers at that time, I think it was around 1990, 91, it cost about $150,000 at that time to do it. And they voted for the mayor council. And they've had hearings and people come forth, and Richard Bodner from Rutgers Law Center, he came down and spoke what the various forms of government were. And they interviewed prior committee people, prior mayors. They interviewed, I don't know how many people, maybe 150 people were interviewed for it. And it's a very complex process.
So at that time, it sounds like people in the community didn't like that form
At
of
that
government.
time, they thought it was. It was suggested to go to council manager, which is a little different ball game, council manager. But council mayor does not have a good track record in the state of New Jersey. If you look at the towns where mayors have gone to jail, whether it be Union City, Patterson, Atlantic City, Camden, Benton, the city of Newark, and many others, I think West Milford too at one time, there's a few towns in Monmouth County over the last 50 years. So it's a form of government that does lead to corruption, or call it what you want. It's not exactly the best form, and in some cases doesn't represent the people. It may work better in a big city where you have maybe 60,000 people or more, or 50,000 or more, it may work better, I don't know. But in this part of Burlington County and Pemberton Township, it doesn't. The committee form of government, everybody has equal power, basically. No one has more power than the next one. So you don't have any dictators floating around with it. And they pick a mayor among themselves. They pick a mayor to sign the documents, and the authority he has basically is very little except the authority that the other four members give it to him. Not correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah. It's a simple form, was in the earliest forms, and they call it the charter form, basically, of government on it. And it's more accountable and it's more transparent, because if the public has a question and they ask, Miss Denny here, you have the water department, I have problems with my meter, it's been leaking, nobody's repaired it. Well, you're going to get an answer. She's accountable with it. Every committee person has departments. That don't mean they run them. They still have a business administrator that runs the daily operation. But ultimately, they're responsible if there's a problem and it hasn't been corrected. And when it comes budget time, it's an open process to the public. There's no hidden facts. The sheets are handed out to everybody that wants to hear the budget process and everything else on it. But it's a very transparent form. It's probably the most transparent form in the state of New Jersey of local government. And there's many people in the community that are seriously thinking about it right now. And the way this township has been run, the last 8 years or 12 years, you might say, it looks in that direction. And I think the people of Pemberton Township deserve a better form of government than they presently have, because your hands are tied. You may be 5 people sitting up here voted on by the people, but many times there's limits to what you could do for the people on it. It's a frustrating situation, and it doesn't help the image of the town whatsoever.
Mike, I just wanted to say, I looked around. This has been going on. I believe Sherry had spoke about this in her campaign about the different change form of government. And the closest one, Jason, is West Hampton. That's the form that he's basically talking about. And the one with the manager, Willingboro. But it's not very many that have the form of mayor and council. Now I have to double check and see, but not very many.
I think Burlington Township has,
Burlington City.
Has always, yeah, but Burlington Township, what they have, which is different, they had a solicitor for the council and a solicitor for the mayor.
Oh.
This many areas, they do have it that way. And it functions much different than what this has functioned here in Pemberton Township. But the committee form's a very simple form, basically. And I think it's, well, what I have seen in government, I feel it's the most transparent form, where the public is informed more. And you have an election every year, which keeps the government in front of the people by having an election every year. 2 one year, 2 the next year, and 1 the next year. And what I have seen in the past, that if the people weren't satisfied, regardless of party, those people running for re-election had a good chance of losing if they felt the government wasn't doing something proper. But it's out in the community. The council doesn't have to do a thing about it. The people will. But I was just curious on the feelings of the council individuals, how they felt about it.
Well, I'll just make my comment. I mean, I don't have a problem with the change form of government. I don't have a problem, but we didn't have a problem about 2-3 years ago, 2 terms ago, when we all ran together. We didn't have a problem. And I believe the problem came when when administration, okay, I'll get this one on my side, I'll get that one on my side. I kind of thought that, and then we started all splitting up. And I'm like, well, what happened? Sherry will tell you. My God, when budget time came, we all sat down, we discussed the budget. If 2 had a comment or whatever on the budget, we sat down, made sure we understood the whole 9 yards with administration. Never had we had problems like we have now until the past 2-3 years ago.
But I think
I would say 4 years ago, right before the last election.
Oh, right.
But definitely right after not the election last year, but the second election.
she's correct. After the first term was up, the government changed quite a bit, and the powers changed quite a bit. It was no longer functioning, and it wasn't transparent anymore.
That's just my theory on it,
Well, I agree, Diane, and we've been here the longest, and I think that's why we appear to be so frustrated, because we were here when we worked together. When we weren't told, I'll tell you what you need to know when I think you need to know it. There's a big difference. And I don't know. I don't believe this is the way the government's intended to work. I believe it's intended where everybody works together.
Unfortunately, you can't ensure that with this form of government.
That's exactly true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the right people, it'd probably work fine.
And
But
look,
unfortunately, with this form of government, if you get the wrong person, then that's the end of it.
And look at what we accomplished that first term.
Oh,
We
yeah.
accomplished
A
so much, and then all of a sudden, I couldn't tell you what we accomplished.
Imagination Kingdom, I can go on down
Other
the line.
than bringing in road crew, that's, for the road department, and it's sad. And I certainly don't want to sit here and fight with anybody, but I'm not going to keep my mouth shut
Well,
when
the
I
thing
feel
is,
people in our community
What
are
is
being
taking
injured.
place? What is taking place is not helping the people of Pemberton
No,
Township
No.
doesn't.
one bit.
No.
And
at
it's
all.
not helping their taxes when they have to pay their tax bill, and they can't get the proper information out of the budget of how money's being spent and how money's being transferred from one department to the next department come November 1st, which happens every year, and transferring funds from one department to the next one with funds left over.
Well, we just told you it's going to happen.
Thank you.
And the police overtime line.
Mr. Maldonado, and then Mr. Tompkins.
You're hobbling today.
You got injured at the Mets game?
Yeah, more like 14 T-bowlers beating me up. Hello, I'm here as a board liaison for Pemberton Township Schools. We have worked very hard, and we're pleased to announce that we have a new superintendent. We will be announcing him tomorrow night, and we are cordially inviting you to attend. Okay, the meeting will be at the Pemberton Township High School at 6 p.m. It'll be in the library, and we hope to see you there. Now, as a taxpayer and a resident of this town, I'm very disappointed in all of you. I am. I understand because I'm a Baptist myself. I was raised Catholic, baptized Baptist. But you know what? And you sit there and you think, this town is torn apart. And every one of you have been elected into office. Not one of you hear the people. And you know, with me being a public official myself on the school board, the superintendent told me, he says, if you can't lay your head down and sleep well at night, you've made the wrong decision.
That's right.
And you know what? And I hold that very dear. And you know what? I've been abiding by that for 3 years I've been on the board. And I suggest you guys do the same. Okay? Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Mr. Tompkins?
Jack Tompkins, Pemberton. Jason, thank you, by the way. Mr. Tam, I'm going to make an enemy. I'm sorry. I disagree 100% with what you were saying about the form of government. I'm a resident here. I'm very happy with the form of government. The only thing I might not be happy about is all of your Democrats.
Please, Mike.
you know, a couple R's up there might not be a bad thing. Like I said, you keep hearing we can't do this because we don't have no authority. And there are ways to make the authority. You know, maybe you make it into a law and the lawyers go to court and say, no, you can't do that because it's illegal, but at least you tried. A lot of times it's just we're sitting here and we're not doing the right thing. Ms. Skull, you're looking at your water bottle very intently, but you did bring up some very good points tonight. The administration does seem to have some issues. Our police locker room got closed down when there was litigation about overtime. We've had, you know, no police dog now. We have no chaplain. We have a lawsuit because of a pregnant worker that wasn't afforded the opportunity to work. It seems like some very unjust things coming out of administration towards our police department, which is a shame because we have such a phenomenal police department. I hope I don't get pulled over going home tonight because I'll still say the same thing.
Well, if you hurry up, I think they're switching shifts and you'd be safe.
Okay. But, you know, they do a really good job.
No
They do a
coverage.
really good job. And we're, as a township, really are not treating them with the respect that they deserve.
You're right.
It's a shame.
That's right.
At the last council meeting, I had made a suggestion. I'm hoping no one's said anything tonight that I've heard, but I recommended that you folks ask for Mr. Gonzalez's resignation or maybe fire him. I notice he's not here tonight. Please tell me you did some action on that.
He's not fired.
We all have our hopes, right?
Well, this started in January.
Well, but that's all I have to say. Thank you, and thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Patronus had his hand up first, then Mr. Prickett. I'm sorry, Ms. Wadsworth.
Thank you. George Patronus, again, maybe getting tired of seeing me. Before I get back to the redevelopment plan, I'd like to just comment on three things I heard other people say this evening. First of all, I think it is a massive show of disrespect on the part of the township's principal public servant to walk out of here before he's heard the public have its final say. On top of the disrespect he's shown each and every one of you, and the disrespect he has shown for the whole process of orderly government, he has disrespected every citizen of this town, and it should be noted. Second, this administration installed 3 speed humps on Press Avenue about 6 years ago. They were legal then, they seem to be working. Maybe that's an indication of what you can proceed on with the situation in Sunbury Village. And also, as far as Sunbury Village, I think there was an item in the current budget about installing some new security cameras somewhere in town. If that's true, maybe you could, in a friendly fashion, get the administration to cooperate in redirecting those cameras to a necessary location in Sunbury Village. You might even consider thinking about something like, I understand the crime level inside the BMIA building is way down, so maybe those cameras could be relocated. Finally, Mr. Tam, I also think that this Faulkner form of government was intended for a larger community, a much larger community, where the mayor has to have the power to act quickly, and the community is so large that he can't really have time to get input from the council, from the people. I think it's too massive and too centralized a form for a small community, and we are, even with 28,000 people and 64 square miles, we are a small community, and we should have a form of government which is more appropriate to it. However, there is a form of government, I believe, that breaks the township into wards. And considering that we're a community of communities, that we have knots of population with stretches of road in between them, maybe we should consider expanding the council to 7 members and having each of those members represent a ward, so that as a start, every person has, and I realize that all of you listen to everybody, but I think there might be some value to having a local representative who speaks for each of our communities and who is elected by that community only. So maybe if this whole discussion of change of government goes forward, you might give that idea some consideration. Now, as far as redevelopment, thinking back about Mrs. Scull's question, the idea of spending that UEZ money for individual properties was brought up, and the point was made by the mayor and agreed to after some discussion by people who were at that meeting, that it made much more sense to use the money to help a redeveloper of the shopping center get initial funding for a redevelopment program of the old shopping center, with the understanding that he would use that money and pay it back at the end, and then the money would be used to buy individual properties in other parts of the redevelopment area, because that way essentially you get to use each dollar twice for basically the same overall project. The fact that we have gotten away from that thinking and that we're now going for individual lots would indicate that there has been a major reconsideration of how the redevelopment plan is going forward. So I'm happy to hear that there was discussion here about following up on the suggestion that we have a public presentation of what the new plan is. But I didn't hear you address that question in detail and set something up on a definite schedule so that something like that would occur. I'd appreciate it if you would, I realize that that you probably can't act at this point, but you might consider as part of that presentation, I think about a month and a half ago, you approved applying for a grant from the Delaware Valley Regional, I forget the exact organization, but you approved a contract for, I believe, RBA Engineering to do a streets study with, supposedly that street study is going to include things like bicycle paths and the like. Part of the redevelopment plan that is in place now contemplated things like when the section of Juliustown Road that's under discussion got rebuilt, that there would be a berm to isolate part of the traffic lanes from the main flow of traffic to give pedestrians walking room, maybe make it easier for bicycles to get around. There's also my pet project or pet issue, which would be to adopt some kind of ordinances here and at the county to allow the use of low-speed electric vehicles in the areas where the speed limit is 30 or 35 miles an hour. And if that RBA study is a study for how our streets can coordinate with the rest of the county's streets, maybe including them in any discussion about a new vision or a modified vision for the downtown redevelopment would be appropriate, and I wish you would consider that. The concern I have about the present proposal, and I believe, with all due respect, Mrs. Jackson, I believe you were premature in moving forward with the proposal because I think you're putting the horse before the cart. You should have the statement of the new vision before you work on the details, because that $1 million, the plan as it currently exists, that as it was presented and worked on for years, contemplates tearing down all of that block of Juliustown Road that these properties are located on. And the $1 million that are available by themselves will not buy those properties, far less fund the rebuilding of those properties. The one issue that I heard that was raised that makes this more urgent was that those properties are still on the market and something might happen and we may lose the opportunity to get them and incorporate them into the town's plan. I submit that that is not a very viable consideration because, first of all, the trend in the downtown area has been to increase the inventory of vacant properties and closed businesses, not decrease it. So we're probably at limited risk of having somebody snap those properties up and just rush a business into them to head us off.
That's right.
Although, if that were to happen, I submit that that would be a better development than buying those properties to knock them down and have an empty lot until we find some money to do something with it. So all of that being said, I wish you would move forward with a proposal to get a public statement of the new or the modified vision of the redevelopment plan before you consider the individual steps that would implement that revised vision, because until you have that put before you, you can't tell how those individual steps do or do not work into the whole plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr. Prickett? I said Mr. Petronas, Prickett, and then Wadsworth. I said that last time.
Rick Prickett. I think these two ordinances that George was just talking about really illustrate that the council isn't working together, that the council isn't doing their homework. For these two ordinances to just appear on the agenda, you got your packet, I guess, Friday. Do you get your packets on Friday or Thursday? I just don't know why you didn't ask all these questions last week. Get all the answers last week. Ms. Truebud mentioned that you could back out if it wasn't to your liking, something to that effect. If the property was too expensive or there were some conditions that the council wasn't in favor of. Well, can the council really back out, or is that administration's role? Would it be your decision, or would it be the mayor's decision? I don't know. I think that the council should have been interacting with each other, talking about this, and if it was so urgent that you buy these properties, why wasn't it done in closed session? Why wasn't there a discussion about these properties? Was there a
This was
discussion?
presented to us at the closed session, am I correct?
Last week.
Last
Yeah.
week. So
2
we-
weeks ago at the last council meeting?
Yes, correct. So we did see it, all this council did see it before this evening.
Well, then why didn't you get all the answers to all these questions that you asked and that came up tonight? That's your responsibility.
Rick, I don't believe in anything and rushing through anything, so I wasn't going to rush back there, and I'm not going to rush out here.
Well, was there a consensus that these things
I
appear?
can't
this is up to
discuss,
the
you know.
council president. Well, don't answer my question, but
Okay, but I just wanted to let you know that since they already talked about what went on down back in closed session, I'm letting you know on this part here that I wasn't going to rush through anything back there,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to rush through anything here
well, that wasn't
because
going to be my question. Was there a agreement from the council to have this on the agenda tonight? The council president is the one responsible for these items being on the agenda.
So how would there be, if I'm responsible for the items on the agenda, how would there be an agreement?
Because if you're a good council president, you would ask the council folks to see if they're in agreement of having it on the agenda.
Mr. Prickett, he cannot ask the council questions unless they're at a council meeting.
You can ask.
No,
you can
cannot.
ask them individually. You're telling me that he can't talk to any council members about
Yes,
what's on
he
the
can,
agenda?
but that's not how they do it.
If there's three,
When
that's
something
true.
is put on for introduction, council can discuss it at that time. They were given it 2 weeks ago, but Mr. Allen cannot turn around and have discussions with all of council on something. That's violating the open
Only-
public.
As long as it's not three,
only
you
one
can, and
member.
you're the clerk, I defer to you, I respect your opinion, but
Yeah.
I think you can talk to two and one, you just can't talk to three together.
But no, you cannot talk to more than two at the same
Two,
time.
right.
However, the problem becomes if he's talking to everybody and getting everybody's opinion on something, that constitutes a meeting.
Well, I think you would have some kind of a feeling from closed session, from whatever discussion you've had on this, whether the council as a whole was in support of putting this on the agenda. I just think you guys need to work together. It was obvious tonight you weren't working together, and you need to have your questions answered before you come before the public. I just want to give you an example of a property that the township took into their possession. They condemned it, and it's on Julius Town Road. You have another administration coming in, and they're going to see these two vacant lots that possibly you're going to buy next week. Another administration might say, what do we need this property for? Let's get rid of it, let's sell it. And that's what happened to a prime piece of property on Julius Town Road in the redevelopment area. You know, you need to, if you're going to buy these properties, you need to find a way to make sure they stay with the township for the intended purpose of redevelopment. Because if somebody else comes along, it might be sold at a far basis price to somebody else. Now, if it's a developer that fits the needs of your plan, that's great. That's another story. So, I'm interested up here is where with the mayor council form of government, why can't we make it work better? The mayor knows how to make his part of it work. Why doesn't the council work a little bit more on making the council work better? I talked a little while ago about resolutions. That's a way you can voice your opinion on different things that are happening in the town. A few meetings ago, you participated in a grievance, and you voted 5-0 in support of the grievance, if I remember correctly. I saw that in the paper. And administration said, well, this is a form of government. We don't have a right to have an opinion on that. We're going to do what we want to do. Why? You know, that was in the paper, and I'm reading that and saying, well, maybe administration has a point. So why don't you put together a resolution expressing your opinion on why you support, maybe it's not agreement, but why you support that police officer. And you can do that with so many other issues as well. You can do it with a canine dog, but you need to wait a while to see if the mayor is going to actually purchase the canine dog or dog. You could do it with the other issue that was the chaplain. Give him some time to appoint a chaplain. If he does it somewhere down the road, express your feelings of the needs. Because as a public, I don't know, I see that Sherry might support something, Diane might support something, but I don't know about Jason. He's kind of a quiet guy. He's kind of a quiet lady, and Norman too. You need to get it on the record so people can see it. The other tool, I think you need to look at your tools. You certainly haven't looked at the tools with budgeting. You give the mayor whatever he wants with the budget. It's basically, whoop, we'll go through. The subtle little minuscule changes. This year was important to make that change. So basically, you just accept the budget as it's presented. There's another tool that perhaps you need to look at, and actually you've worked on it, requesting reports, and you've wondered about why they're not coming back fast enough. Did you write a letter to the mayor requesting those reports? According to this book, state law on municipalities, any council member may at any time require a report on any aspect of the government of the municipality by making a written request to the mayor.
Does it tell you when they have to give it back to you by law?
Well, that's where your solicitor comes in. And that's also where your business administrator comes in, I think. But maybe you could have a discussion with your solicitor on how soon they should be getting these reports back here. And that leads me to the business administrator, who serves at the pleasure of the mayor, I believe, and he also serves not quite at the pleasure of the council. I've heard comments about terminating business administrator, but there's a little thing in here about cause. And there's a whole bunch of things in there about that, but I don't want to go into that now. I just would like to talk about the business administrator. He's not exclusively a mayor's employee. He's partly partly a council employee. He has to take direction. They have to take direction to some degree from the council. And let me just cite part of the law that I'm talking about. It has to do with business administrator qualifications, 40:69A-44. And this is D. These are the items. The department under the direction of the mayor shall, blah, blah, blah. And D, perform such other duties as council may prescribe. Well, a question I asked at the last meeting was having to do with the business administrator being required to come to the meetings, and Andy said, well, that's because it's in the ordinance. And I could have sworn I saw that in state law somewhere. Well, here's this part of the state law that I saw. The council prescribed it. So what else can you prescribe the business administrator to do besides just come to meetings? What else? Can you prescribe him to give you some information about the finances of the town? I don't know. And that's, again, where your solicitor comes and you can ask him. You could ask a lot of other people about what you could get your business administrator to do. So there's a lot of cooperation. And you have your carrots and you have your sticks. And you need to be aware of what's in your toolkit. The mayor said a little while ago that he couldn't force or he didn't have anything to do with the chaplain program. But yet, if the police department wants a chaplain, he has to appoint. There has to be cooperation. And if there's not cooperation, it sounds like now the program is getting updated, and the mayor is having some say in it. The same is true with the council and the mayor. There is cooperation if the council sticks together and decides what are their priorities. What's more important, having a strong council or doing everything that the mayor puts in front of you to bring to the board? You know, a lot of things the mayor puts in front of the council are good items. I mean, the chaplain guy didn't have a problem with it, but I understand what Ms. Stoll said. You know, here we go again. We're doing whatever they want us to do. There has to be some cooperation between the council and the mayor, and the only way that will happen is if you don't give the administration everything they want. You establish your priorities and say, well, if you want that, well, we are interested in these things. I mean, that's horse trading. That's not always the nicest thing. It's not always nice to get down to the dirt and do these things, but you have to do it. But you have to do it as a whole. You have to show respect of your office. Your office is not to be an agent of the mayor. Your office is to be an agent of the people.
That's right.
So,
Hey, Rick, I have a question for you, if you don't mind, please. Give me that statute again. It was...
the business administrator?
Right. And then I'm going to have a follow-up question for you. Go ahead. 40
Yeah,
what?
it's 40:69A-44, and that's business administrator qualifications. And there's B, perform such other duties as council may prescribe.
Well, in that, since you have that book there, could you answer this question for me? Maybe you can help me out? Or maybe Dave could help me out down here. Doesn't this form of government say that the mayor and or business administrator must be present at our council meetings?
I've been looking through this document. I've been able to find that. I think that's
That's a question for Dave. Dave? I mean...
I don't know that it says that. What Rick seemed to say was that your ordinance says the BA will be there. I don't know that there's a requirement that the mayor be there. In fact, I know other towns. I mean, the city of Newark is the same form of government, mayor, council. The mayor never goes to the council meetings. And I don't think there's a requirement that he does so.
No, but we didn't have anyone here tonight. I mean, I understand that. I mean, and, you know, and the mayor hasn't been attending, so I did look up that statue, and he doesn't have to.
I don't think he does. The towns that I'm aware of that are also the same form of government, most of the ones I
Now,
remember...
did we break the law tonight? We don't have anyone here, did we?
Did the business administrator give you reason for not being here?
I never knew he wasn't going to be here.
I think it's his responsibility to let you know. That's probably why the mayor was here.
Oh, I'm sure.
I had not a
would
clue.
read this law, 40:69A-34.
I got it.
I think frankly, the business administrator is going to have to do a job for all the form of government. If you work with the business administrator, maybe he can help you do your job. So it says right here, perform such other duties as the council may prescribe. What are those duties that you could prescribe for the business administrator to do for you, the council, or the people? It also says here, at the time of his appointment, he may not be a resident of the municipality or state. But during his tenure of office, he may reside outside the municipality only with the approval of council. And you think that's not approval? I guess you have, because does he live within the municipality? So you see,
Did you just say the business administrator?
That's what I said. You want me to read it again?
Yes.
And that's out of the law.
That's out of the state law. 40:69A-44, business administrator, this is a stick. Think of it as a stick.
Oh, yeah.
At the time of his appointment, he need not be a resident of the municipality or state, but during his tenure of office, he may reside outside the municipality only with the approval of the council.
Oh.
So, why don't you do some kind of a resolution? Do you support him living out or living in? You know, or don't do that. It's nice to have the possibility of doing that. Maybe get some more cooperation.
Tonight's meeting was about we want to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing. You heard that. We want to keep Pastor Glass on. You heard that. So that should have been at the table as well. I guess you pick and choose.
You know, I have some concerns regarding to the committee form of government. I saw it up here tonight. You guys arguing with each other, very unhappy with each other, and that is true. I think Jason talked about that. That's why the people got away from the committee form of government a year ago, 98 or whatever.
Yeah.
But
91
why not look into it? Why not ask the solicitor to draw up the ordinance to put it on the ballot? Take a look at it. Doesn't mean you have to pass it. But if you had that ordinance in your pocket, it had passed, by the way, what happens is the question goes before the voters to decide whether they want to revert to the committee form, previous form of government. The mayor's out of job if that happens. He's not employed. You folks then become the 5 committee people. There is a little stick in your pocket that you can use to get the mayor's attention.
If I could
We've got to work together to do it.
If I could just clarify one thing, Rick, I thought, it was my understanding from Mr. Tam and also just from my knowledge, which isn't much on this issue, that in order to change the form of government, there needs to be a petition by a certain number of citizens of the town. So it's not that the council votes and it's just put on the on a ballot. I think there's a petition by a certain number of residents, which then leads to it being placed on the ballot, I think.
There's two ways. There's two ways of doing it. The council can pass a ordinance to have it placed on the ballot, or residents can sign a petition to have the question placed on the ballot.
Amy, would you like to address
That
it?
is correct. It can be done in both fashions, either by ordinance or by petition.
And the same is true, thanks.
And either way would put the vote on the ballot for the citizens.
For the next election.
Correct.
Okay.
The next general election.
When we-
Or, well, it depends on when it's done, and then it might have to be a special election.
See, that's the information that council would need to know, because it would cost, if it was a special election, it would
Correct.
cost extra money.
That the township would have to pay.
But this is the sort of thing that we did when we changed from changed to a staggered form of government. It was the council. Residents could have put together a petition and had it placed on the ballot. But the council did. And the other thing that the residents or the council can do is put the question on for awards, as Mr. Petronis was talking about. or I believe, or non-partisan form of government. And that might help decreasing the bickering between people and make it a non-partisan government. But I can see that you guys have heard enough of me tonight, so I'm going to step down and say a lot. But again, you need to use the tools that you have available to you. You need to stick together. It doesn't mean that whatever it is administration wants, if the intent is good and you see that, it doesn't mean you don't give it to them, but don't be so easy. Make them work.
Ms. Wadsworth?
With you.
It's been a long night, and I'm going to try to make this short and sweet so you guys can go. Ms. Skull, don't faint, but I agree with you.
I thought she said don't paint.
Is absolutely doing whatever he can to mess with our police department. This chaplain is nothing but another issue. If it wasn't, he would not have not reappointed Pastor Glass. He said tonight that he did appoint him. He did set a precedence by just letting it roll over year after year after year. And now he's trying to define it, find the direction of the program. Well, why didn't he care until now? I'm done with it. Don't need any questions unless you guys have them. I'm not asking questions, I'm making a statement. With regards to ordinance 8 and 9 of 2015, I absolutely agree. Ms. Jackson, I'm sorry, it was ahead of putting the horse before the cart. You did not have all the facts. Council does not have all the facts. The presentation should have occurred. One of the reasons you moved on it, as Mr. Petronis stated, was, what if somebody else comes in and buys the property?
I did not say that, but okay.
How horrible would that be, that somebody would actually come in here and develop our township?
Yeah, I didn't say that.
That's all I have to say. Good night.
Good night, Miss Swapper.
Is there anybody else? Ms. Phillips.
And don't faint, I agree with you.
That's not the first. Prayer, but not the
Amen.
Good evening, everybody, in general. I'm making very short. I'm making my time.
Mic isn't working. We ran out of battery.
Okay, number one, go for the president of the council.
Mrs. Phillips, I apologize, but can you stop because the mic is no longer working? We actually ran out of battery.
You throw that leader. That's fine.
No, I've
You
got-
can still talk, she says she...
You've got another battery. There's another battery right here.
I have another battery, okay?
Oh, I thought you said you ran out of them.
Said the battery ran out.
Oh.
So just wait.
It only goes for so long.
Good night, Mr. Tam. While they're doing that, thank you kindly.
Sever the mayor's mic.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. They could go to that mic.
Huh?
They could go to the mayor's mic. Oh.
What did I do? My...
I think you put it down.
Good night.
Okay.
Thanks for checking on us.
Okay, good evening everybody in general. Buen estar. This is for the president of the council. Mr. Allen, since the rude mayor and administrator is not here at the time, it looked like the parents left the children alone. My question to you is going to be, the roads in Presidential Lake, Tennessee Florida Trail, New Hampshire Road, and Tennessee Trail, they start constructing those roads or renew those roads back in August 2014. All those chemicals And all the stuff they pull it out for the old roads. All the workers for the township told them what to do with. What they did, they dumped it between Florida Trail, Connecticut Roads, Connecticut Trail, and Tennessee Trail. Mayor Patriarca do not care about it, the administrator either. You know why? They don't have wells. Residential lakes are buying wells. And what happened with all those chemicals? They are going down, sipping to our wells. This took place last September, August, September, and October, and November when they finish. We are in April today. Haven't been removed. What I got for the, Mr. Mayor it is, I want to leave it in writing in here tonight with the council. You're not going to do nothing about it in 8 days? DEP will be called in. Burlington County will be called in. Yes, sir, please tell Mr. Mayor that he better just tie his boots up.
Mrs. Phillips, I'm sorry, what did you say they dumped?
All the debris.
The millings from the road?
Everything for the road, they pile it up, and the property belongs to Pemberton Township there. And we have wells. We don't have city water. I didn't care if we had city water. But we got wells.
I know. Thank you.
And the way all the water is coming out from the lake to our place. Not only my well is contaminated. It's all the houses are in Presidential Lake at this moment. I guess the township got plenty money for to pay in lawsuits. Now, my next question to the president of the council is, can you tell me, Alan, how much money is being spent in the overtime in the police department from January 1st to April 15th? The total.
I don't know that that's in here.
It's 110,000? Or 115 or something?
We don't have till
Okay.
April, we have till March 31st, 110,000.
Okay. Okay, my next question to you it is, I already saw the number. My next question to you, Mr. Allen, to ask the mayor. Whose idea was to put the police department in 8-hour shift? Probably the solicitor can answer me that question.
I think we're waiting for that information in the report. That's one of the questions we asked, that we haven't had the report for yet.
Nobody knows who made that decision? That was this critter over here?
Administration.
Okay, administration did it. Okay.
Why, we don't know yet.
Okay, the reason why that we pay a lot of overtime right now, because when the mayor made a decision, the 8-hour shift, he did not have the power for 3 shifts instead of 2 shifts. That means who paying that? That doesn't come from his pocket. Come for the poor residents who pay as a taxpayer, as myself. I live in a fixed income. And I do not want to see my taxes going up. Number one, those roads where they fix, they better get together and go refix them back again. I also saw something in here. Let me see. 15-215. That you guys hire some company to do the roads now, to pave the roads. And the agenda.
105?
Yeah, 105, 2015.
Now, that was for the East Lakeshore Drive. Some of the
Yes,
roads...
I know that.
Right, but some of the roads will be paved by paving companies. Our guys aren't doing all of the roads.
Okay.
There will be some roads that, the bigger roads, the paving companies. This is
Oh,
the way I
that's the
understand
reason our roads are destroyed. That's the reason Presidential Lake was left behind. Like they left behind us. We work in our 3rd year, we saw fire services. and we are taxpayers. This is the third year it's coming up. We don't have nothing in there. When a resident is taken in the ambulance, Lord mail him the bill for $900, but we give the fuel to Lord's. But the mayor did not answer that question. He did not want to hear nothing about it. And that's not fair. I'm going to leave that with those roads. I hope to see a letter in the mail in reference to all the debris that are there. Today is the 15th. I give them 8 days because DPA is the first one. They calling on the scene, and Burlington County will be the same day we'll be calling. Take in consideration, he's killing everybody anyway. He think he can disintegrate the PL, but guess what? Keep dreaming. We know how to take them out. Good night. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Council comments.
That one gentleman.
And Mr. Wells still.
You still want to?
I'll be very brief. I just want to make an observation that tonight the mayor was having to answer questions that he normally wouldn't answer. And the more he talked, the more frustrated you five people got. Extremely frustrated. Not in every case, and somebody, and it wasn't all bad. But listening to the community come forward with ideas how to fix our government should be embarrassing. Because tomorrow, and I mentioned to Dave on the way outside, this is going to help you rebuild the Burlington County Times. Oh, I love it. Because frankly, we all look stupid. We as a community are not pulling together. And so we deserve this. Because reality is, it has more to do with an individual's vindictive actions against the police force. For whatever reason I can't figure out. But everything else goes by the wayside. And we listened. How many hours did we talk tonight about a problem that wasn't really the problem? The problem is the mayor. And because of that, it is the government. Hopefully, our police will hang in there until something changes. But I don't think it's going to be this way. Because he is a strong-willed, vindictive person. I like the guy, actually. But I watch this kind of stuff. I feel stupid. And when I read tomorrow the paper, I'm going to feel more stupid. This isn't the way we should be.
No.
It just isn't. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Wells.
you.
Council comments.
I actually agree with Mr. Wells. I think that he is absolutely right. We did look ridiculous tonight arguing amongst each other. And we did allow him, the mayor, to set it off a little bit, so to speak, for lack of a better words. I would like to say, though, I do take offense to being called a puppet because of the way that I vote, which also feed it into, I'm sure, tomorrow's paper. We are here to agree to disagree, and because I voted one way, it's perceived as me being a puppet. Like I said, I took a strong offense to that. I sit here, I listen to the public, I listen to the council, I sit here and have to have public yell at us, get angry with us, and I sit here and I don't do it back, but I listen. Once I listen and make my decision, it's still not good enough for people. And I don't think that's fair, in my personal opinion. Yes, I realize being up here, I cannot take things personal, and that's fine, but at the same time, people should not personally attack as well. The other thing I wanted to say was, I sit here, just because I sit here quiet at times and may not voice my opinion or voice certain things as well, or as much as Ms. Skull or Mrs. Stinney, does not mean that I don't have an opinion and I have to voice it just because someone may expect me to voice it at that time. When I feel as though I have a stand to make or something I need to say, I will say it. I will say it. There was something else I had wanted to say.